All right, so let's get started. Let's start with PyCharm community. All right, let's wait for it to load up. So this is week 12, I guess. All right, so that's a previous week. We're gonna go new project. Let's call this week 12. So make sure we have a right Python file here, and we're gonna create the project with a new window. All right, so week 12 is ready to go. Right click here. We're just gonna have one main, maybe two, depends on what we do today. Might become creative alone. I think that's okay size wise, right? Yeah, haven't changed that since last time. So today we're gonna work through files, right? So today's about files, and let's comment below. So using files are one of the most popular ways of sorting data on secondary storage. Typo as usual, so we're gonna right click here and fix that. We know that our compiler actually has this typo check, and can change the words if you like. So what's a secondary storage? Could be hard drive or thumb drives, anything stored somewhere else. So one of the things we guys learned, programs are fine, but we need data, and we learn about arrays and lists and all that. Those are stored. Also, you might have an external file that you want to use with your program, right? So that's the idea with this. We're going to learn how to do this. In order to use that, we have to do a couple of things. So we have to do the followings to link your file. Could be anything, could be from like a regular text file to the data or Excel sheet, whatever you need to your program, right? So what's the procedure? So first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna create / open the file, right? So if you already have a file, you should open it. Opening doesn't means like you link it to your program. And sometimes if you don't have that file, you can create it throughout your program. So let's say you have a file, you want to store all this information in the file, you can create it through your program. If you have it, you can open it to do your procedure or just access whatever you need to. So the first thing is opening it. The second thing is you selecting the mode. What that even means is what you're going to do with it. All right? You can do three things to a file. You can read it, you can write, and you can append. I think it's with E. It means adding to it. So when you have a file, you can open it, you can read it, you can write on it, you can add more, or you can add stuff to it. And I'm going to talk about what's the difference between these three, right? And the third is when you're done, you're going to close it. This is really important. Why? Because that's the most problem you'll face, and you forget to close your file. A file which is in use, it cannot be accessed somewhere else. So that's actually happening on your computers. You open a Microsoft Word file and you try to open it again, or let's say you have a PDF, you open it with Adobe Reader, and you want to access it with another software, it cannot actually access. So each file can be used once every time. No two softwares or two sources can access one file at the same time. So you have to close when you're done with it. That goes with every single programs that I know. Okay, so that's the three procedure. How do you do that in Python? Simple enough. You can assign a variable, let's say file name. So you can have a variable that link to your file. So what you do, you're going to use the terminology open. So the open is the keyword, or let me just minimize this. And you're just going to write the name of the file. So the file name, let's .txt. So let's say we want to open a text file or whatever it is. And then you're going to set the access mode, which is can be read, write, and append. Okay, right? So what are the action modes? Let me just talk about them below. So there is a short form R, which is for, so open the files for readings. Only, and place the pointer at the beginning of the file. What is the pointer? Pointer is when you open a file, you want to go through it, and there's an indicator that indicates where is the location that you can have access to. So when you open a file, there's nothing in it, you want to read it, it goes from the beginning, then you can say, okay, go one by one and start reading. Sometimes it's not at the beginning. Let's say if you want to append or add stuff to the file, that pointer wouldn't be at the beginning, because that's going to override whatever you have in that file. So that pointer would be at the end of it, because you want to add stuff to whatever you already have, right? So this pointer point out where to start when you open the file, right? By default, usually is at the beginning, which is the location 0, by the way. We know that, right? So that's your index in a sense. So this is an index for going through the file, right? There is a write, so that open a file for writing only, and place the pointer at the beginning. Beginning of the file. So that means you open a file to write stuff on it, and you start from the beginning. That means if that file has something on it already, you're gonna overwrite it. If it's nothing on it, you're just gonna write things from the beginning. We're gonna try all that, no worries. And there is append, which is A. So open a file for writing only, and place the pointer at the end of the file for adding context, right? Context or whatever. Fix those. So this is a three main mode. Place. Sorry, it's better to do it that way. This is a three main mode. That's common in all the languages. They have write, read, and append. Some languages has a combination of those as well. So Python, that's just for your information. You don't need to know those. This is nothing to do with the course we're going through. But this is, if you do R plus, means read and write together. Or there's one called that RB, which is read the file in binary. Python, sometimes you need to read the file in binaries. You're dealing with the hardwares or such. You can always read it in binary or in decimal. You can have option. Look into it. There is a lots of sub mode that you can select based on the application you need. But these three are general for all the application you may need in the future. Okay, so let's try it. How about that? We're gonna go here and define the module. I'm gonna do that modulus because every time I write this, it's gonna override whatever I had. So I'm gonna do this in a module that when I don't need to write or read, I just don't call it. We're gonna go with creating a file. Let's do that. So let's open a file named, let's say, philosophers.txt. So there's a text file and in a writing mode. So I'm opening a file called, so I'm going to do this. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to call open file, so a variable to associate the program with the file. It's kind of connected. So we're going to open the, let's call the name philosopher. So what we're going to do is in a string format, we're going to say, okay, open the philosophers.txt and then comma, and you write the mode. So what's the mode is write, right? Just gonna bring this back because when you're creating this, it will be in the same package as the week 12 we have. So it's gonna be along with this main file in the specific location we have for this project. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna be in the write mode. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna add, let's say, 3 philosophers to the file. So we're gonna go now. We have the file. We're just gonna call the variable and go dot. And this is all the option you have when you create your file. You can check the mode also. So we're gonna talk about that in a second. You can find many things. You can read. You can check is readable even. Sometimes you have a file is corrupted. You don't know is readable or not. There's many things you can do. We're gonna do write. So write is, you can check is writable, or you write stuff on it. So we're gonna write something on it, and we're gonna say John, a bunch of famous philosophers. I'm gonna put there John Locke, and let's say, let's do that again. So the one more. Let's say David Hume, or and the most famous one is Sam McBride. It's a famous philosophy of all the time. Yeah, I have my own philosophy in life. Alright, so we're writing these 3 names. So by opening a file, you're just writing those names in it. What else I gotta do? So what's the procedure? So there's a list here, right? So create and open it, select the mode, and close it. Why you need to close? Because if you don't close it, later on you want to access to the file again, you cannot do that. I cannot emphasize enough. It's really important to close the file. So my suggestion to you is every time you open a file, right away, close the file and write whatever you need to write between these two. It's a clause, right? So open and close. Do between whatever you want. In that case, you never forget what to do, right? So let's see. So when you're done, then you're just gonna simply go open file dot close. So that close the file. All right. So let's try it. See what's gonna happen. We're going to call it create file. So I'm going to call this module. So it goes up here and just going to do all that. Let's run it. All right. So you see the program runs perfectly, and I have this file here called philosophers. It's right there. It's generated and it's good to go. Let's click on that, and I'm opening it, and I see those names in it. So there's Jane Lucky, David Hume, and Sonic Bear. What's the problem here? Space, or let's write those in each line. You can't do that. So these are just continuous throwing information. So the funny thing is when you write this, that pointer was from the beginning. You write this, gonna stay right after the log key, right? Then I'm gonna add this, and I'm gonna add it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna write each of these in a basically each line. So after this guy, go to the next line. We know how to do that. \n, and let's do that. And for the last one, let's have it as well. We don't know, maybe later we want to add more stuff to the file. So I want that pointer to go to the next line anyway, just in case we need to add another thing. Alright, so let's try it again, see if it actually fixes our problem or not. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to run it again. And here we go. So you run it. Everything seems fine, except my name is kind of a typo in this software. It doesn't know who I am yet. Probably there's no ignore. Probably it is. I'm not looking for that. But anyway, so this is what you do. We open a file, we create the file, we write the information on it. If you go to this folder, if you right click and go to the location, you can actually see, this is week 12, you can see the file is here. So if you open it with your whatever software you need to, is right there. So it's not into the program or anything. It's a file, separate file with those names in it, right? All right, so let's go do something else. Oh, one other thing is sometimes you forget to open, close, all that. I said it's important, you forget. You can always check the file status. So you can find what's name the file has, what's the mode, and so. So what we're gonna do before we move forward, we just gotta write another module on the top, call it file status check. And in that case, we send the file, let's say, to it. Let's call it open file, whatever it is. And we can check the status. So we're going to print the name of the file. So name of the file. So that tells me what the name of the file is. That would be open file dot name. Those are input outputs. Input output modules. It's not a module actually, it's just a command that tells you information. So let's what else? We can find the file close status. Is that closed? Is that open? That's another thing we can consider. So that's going to be open file dot status, I guess, or closed. So this tells me it's closed or open, because that's the thing I'll sometimes forget. And then we're gonna check the mode also. We don't know when I open a variable like that. I said open file for my own sake, but sometimes you don't know how you open it initially. It was in the reading mode, appending mode, writing mode, I don't know. This isn't a big program. You just have a variable you're working with, you forget. So you always can check as you need. So we're gonna go open mode, and we're just gonna go print the open file dot, I think, mode. That should be works. Yeah, it's Python, it's close to your whatever you think. Alright, so this is what I'm gonna do. Let's test it out. So here, before I close it, I'm just gonna call the top module, let's call it file status check, and send my open file to it. So we'll see what's the status. Before I close it, then I'm gonna separate it. I'm gonna kind of have a separator that see what's going on here. So we're gonna separate from the top. So this is check the status. And when I close it, I check the status again, see what's going on. So let's run it and see what's happening. All right, I think I'm gonna stop the previous one. All right, here we go. So You see, the file is named, I'm talking about this variable open file, is associated with the file philosopher.txt, so it tells me what it is. And the file close status false means it's open and is in the writing mode. So that is before I actually close the file. So I'm checking the status. Now I'll close the file, which is I did, and I'll just check the status again. It's the same thing, but this time the file close status is true, means the file is already closed, still in the writing mode. Alright. So this is one of the things. Alright, so now let's write something more complicated. Let's say I don't know how many times I'm going to write something on the file. So in this case, I have like 3 philosophers. Alright, 3 lines with those names. I know what it is. Let's say I want to get something from the user and basically write it on the file. So we're going to have something called a cells write. We're going to ask how many days do you have the cells from the user, and whatever they have, we're going to writing those cells into the file. Let's say I have cells for 10 days, and they're going to say, okay, give me day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, collect those data from the user and then store it in a file. So let's do that. A little bit more complicated, obviously, for writing. It's not everything is simple that just you go write. Sometimes you're going to work through it. So let's jump right on that. So if you understand this, then you'll be fine. So we're going to have cells write. So this module, what it does, it's first thing we're going to ask a number of days. We don't know how many numbers we have. So we ask user to tell us. And we're going to say, okay, integer input. And my prompt would be for how many days do you have cells? So we don't know how many the user is going to give us. Alright, so let me just, I'm not going to call the philosopher module anymore, because every time I'm doing this, I'm writing over it and it's pointless. So it's basing there. We created once is enough, so it's there now. So it's right here as a part of my package right here. But we're going to use that later. We're going to print it back. So right now we're just writing stuff. Now we're going to talk, after we're going to talk about reading and appending as well, right? Okay, so tell me how many days, and when I got the days, what I'm going to do, first I'm going to go do what? Call a cells file, let's call it that. So I'm creating a variable associated with the file. I'm just going to open, let's call this cells.txt. So we open the file, and is in the writing mode. We learned that it's good to right away close it. I always forget to close, so I always got into the habit of closing the file right away. So whatever I need, I write between open and close. So I'm comfortable, but when I'm done with coding, I don't need to close it. It doesn't cause any problem or trouble, and there is what it is. So how do I do that? Does anyone have any suggestion? So we have 5 days of cells, or 10 days, whatever they give me. I want to ask the user one by one to collect those and write it in the file. Any suggestion? What should I use to do that? You need a loop, right? You need a for loop. So we're going to do for. Let's call it count in range of. We can start from 1 to num days plus 1. We can do that, or we can start from the 0, right? But when I'm asking, when it says it's 5, we're gonna go day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So give me the cells for day 1, day 2, day 3. So start from 1, we go all the way to 5. But as you remember, the second part of the range is not covered, so we're gonna add it by 1 if you want to do it. So this is the days I'm gonna go through, whatever they gave me. So this is a loop, go one by one, and every time I'm gonna do what? I'm gonna ask for the cells now, and I'm gonna go float. Cells can be a float number, it means it can be decimal numbers. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna go input and say enter the cells. Oh, typo as usual. For day, number, let's say, let's use hashtag. Before hashtag become popular for tagging was number sign. And let's call this string. Let's just use plus string count. I usually convert the numbers to the, I never mess with the counter as a number. That's what I don't do. So what I'm doing here is this. Every time I'm having this loop, I'll ask the user enter the cells for day 1, 2, 3, 4. You did this before, by the way, but now you're doing it to the file. So I'm selecting something that you did before. Just now, every time I get the cells, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go write that to the sales file. So we're gonna write what I'm writing, the cells as a variable, right? But one of the things you guys gonna pay attention, this is important, I forgot to mention. The input and output of the files are always in the string format. So when you're dealing with the file, it is in a string. So whatever you take from it is in the string format, and whenever you send to, it has to be in the string format. Here I'm getting the numbers. So write as a module accept string only. Let's put it this way. You cannot send the numbers directly as a numbers because the file is a string, is a text, right? It's not a number at all. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna convert the cells to the string in order to write. So let's make a note here. The input to the file and output from the file are in string formats. So that means what? But later I want those cells to get the sum and average. I'm going to convert them back to the numbers, right? What am I missing? So I'm going to get the cells also. Every time I get that one, I'm just going to go to the next line, right? We don't want to write every single one of them in separate lines because it's easier to grab. So later on I want to grab it, I go to each line and grab each text. We need some sort of association with the whole thing, and pretty much it. And then we close the file when we are done doing that. Let's try and see how it goes. Let me just open this folder here and see. So I'm gonna go all the way here and check or call my cells write module and see how that goes. I'm gonna run it. So it asks me for how many days. I don't know, select the day, 7 maybe. So day 1, $10, $20, $30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and that's it. So one other thing is the user never know everything is recorded to the file. So it's really customary to let the user know, hey, that's what we done. So we're gonna here kind of inform them before we close the file. We're gonna say, hey, data input data was written to cells dot or on cells.txt, something like that, right? Just say whatever you actually give me, I already make a record of it on that file. So go find. So this is a confirmation because nobody knows after that. Like the user don't know what's going on behind those codes, right? So he says, oh, that's 70, and what happened then? Nothing. It says it's finished. All right, that's not good. So let's try that again. Let's go 7, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and just confirm that we all written in the file. Let's see it actually happened or not. Let's go back to, let me just drag this down, and this is my cells files here. So I'm just gonna double click, and you see all those numbers are here. Record. Okay, now since you learned how to write these, let's go to the same file and read it from. That's interesting. So we record that and we kept it safe. And now we want to show the user later with the program that it goes read those files and information and just print it for the user. Let's do that. So I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm not writing this anymore. So that's it. So call the module off, and we're just gonna go cells read, and so one other thing is, if you don't close it here, you won't be able to read it. I'll show you though. When the program actually being used with one module, you cannot use it with another unless you close it. So this is really important. I cannot emphasize enough on this. Most common problem people have. So this time we're gonna create another cells file variable. So this is a variable to go, and this time I am going to read that file. So we're gonna go cells.txt, and instead of writing it, I'm just gonna go read it. So now the file and the variable linked, so the software has access to this, or the code has access to this. And what I'm gonna do, I am going line by line. So let's have a variable called line, and just gonna go call my file now, and then gonna read. So there's a read, there's read lines. Read gonna read all of it. You don't want to read all of it. We want to read line by lines as we go. So the line is basically go read the first line. Next time you're calling this, go read the second line, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna read the first line, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a nice little table for the user to see what's in it, because those are a bunch of numbers. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna separate that. So we have this table. Let's create a table. Let's be creative about that. So we're gonna say here are cells amounts. So let's have the amounts out. So how do I do that now? I open the file. I want to get the cells. I know I read the first line, and if I print it, let's print it. You'll see. Let me just call the module before I continue, and let's see how you guys can combat this. Let's just run it and see. Okay. So I have the first one, which is 10. I know that. That's the day one. Is right here. So I got the first one. How can I go to the second? Any ideas? So what do I need to continue? A loop, right? So how can I say that? How can I set that loop to stop? Break of what? Like there's a condition you have to check, right? What's that condition? So we can't use a break obviously, but there's an easy way to do this. So we have the first line. We're gonna say, okay, while the line is equal to nothing. So the end of the file is there's something called a white space or nothing, whatever you want to call it. So the last thing they grab is nothing. This is like, okay, so when you go line by line and when there is nothing as a line, so now we're gonna go line by line. So what we're gonna do, okay, so first, all right, let's make it interesting. Let's get the total cells and also average for the sake of it, huh? Or just stick with the total cells for the total cells also. So what we're gonna do, I'm getting the, okay, so the line is a string though, right? Because I'm getting it from the file. So if you multiply the line by 2, because line was 10, right? You multiply by 2, okay, let me just comment that for a second. You see? Oh, yeah. So it shows 2 10s. It doesn't show 20 because this is a strings. So what I'm gonna do, every time I'm doing this, I'm gonna get convert the line to the number. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna have an amount, make it an amount actually, and I'm gonna convert the float line here. So we're gonna convert take the string and convert it to float. So we're gonna do that, and then I'm gonna print it with a nice little dollar sign because it's amount, and we're gonna format it just in case the input is not formatted properly with 2 decimal places. So that's what I'm gonna do, and then when I read that one and convert this one, I'm gonna go read the next line. So I'm gonna use copy this line and repeat it again. Every time you repeat, when you're done, the pointer already changed. When you read the line, the first line is changed. So when you say read the line, you go read the second. When you call it again, go to the third. So every time you read something, that pointer moves along with the file, unless you close it and just reopen it again or something. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna do that, and let's see actually print all of it or not. So we're gonna go 10, 20, 30, $40. So we do that. This is the extra. I'm gonna get rid of that. So this 10 just show you what's going on. I don't need this. And that should just do it. Here we go. Those are the amounts. Now I'm gonna want to get this sum of it, right? So let's have a sum. So we're gonna set the sum to 0. And every time I'm doing this, I get the amount. I'm gonna go sum plus equal amount, right? And you can only do that if that's a number. You cannot do it when it's a string. So the input and the output of the file is always string. If you need to convert it to anything else for mathematical purposes or anything like that, you simply can do so running this code. Okay, so let's run it. Oh, I forgot to print. So when I'm done here outside of the while, I just gonna have a separator. And we're gonna just print the sum is sum. That's it. Let's try it. Here we go. So this comes from the file. Guess what? If you go to the file itself, here, where is it? Let me just go. So this is the location, right? So I'm gonna go to the actual file. Where is the big 12? This is my cells. I can go here and change it. I don't know. Let's make it 100 on the first one and 120, 70. That number. We have formatting, right? So we can actually format it out or whatever you need. So you're gonna save that. So if you go run it now, oh, we give you an error. What is it? Yeah, that's a problem. We're converting the number. I put the Q between, right? Try to do things fast. That's not a number. Here we go. That can be defensive programming, right? We can actually catch those errors and do something about it. Sometimes the file doesn't consist of numbers, so let's run it now again. Here we go. So here, you know, the ugly numbers actually changed to 2 decimal places. This one didn't. So we're gonna do what? We're gonna just go and actually format the sum to. And here you go. Try it again. So those are the interactive files. You can change it, save it, and just deal with it as you go. Really easy to manipulate, right? Okay. So I'm gonna do one more reading and probably gonna give you a break, and then we continue after the break. So what we're gonna do now, let's go read our first file we had, which was philosophers. Okay, so if you recall, all right, so I'm not going to read the cells anymore. If you recall, the philosophers has three names, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read that. So simple enough. We call this in file. And we're going to open the file philosopher. So that's the name. Dot txt. And we're going to read it. So this time we're reading. We're not writing anything. We're just reading. And again, before I do anything, I'm gonna right away close it because I easily forget to do so. That's me. If you don't forget these things, go for it. I do forget. And what I'm gonna do, I am going to read the line 1. I know it's 3 lines in it. There's a point here. I can write a loop, right? We have that loop. We learned it that we can go all the way to the end, read line by line, and stops. And exactly apply whatever we did here. Or since I know it's 3 on it, I'm just gonna read lines, line by line. So read lines. So first line would be line 2. So there's 3 lines, right? We know that. I'm gonna do a little bit of lazy work because I'm lazy. So line 2 and line 3. So I'm gonna read each line, and I know the 3 names in it, and I'll be happy. Okay, so when I'm done, I close the file, which is I did. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna say, okay, print the philosophers names are print line 1, line 2, and line 3. Right? So I read each line, and I'm just printing each line. Let's see what's going on. So I'm running it. Oh, I forgot to call the module as usual. Read philosophers. So read philosophers. So I'm calling the module itself. And here. Oh. What did I do? Yeah, that's a problem. This is read lines. So read all the lines. So we need read line though. So if you take a look, it's just gone and read all of them and kept it as the same. And this is a good call actually. Take a look what I actually read. That was the whole point that I was trying to teach you. But what happens here by mistake, instead of read line, I put read lines. So gone and read all the lines. And you can see what's in it, right? Can you see? All right, keep in mind, I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, so I'm going to make that read lines. Read line. So we want to read each line, not all the lines. That was a problem. And here we go. So you see all those things. What's the problem here? Extra space, right? Who can tell me why? You guys just saw that why. See, you can connect the dots. So the file doesn't have any spaces, does it? So why we have a space here? Does anyone can guess? Let me show you something that we just did. If here, we're gonna go to all, and we're gonna go in file, read lines. So read lines gonna read all the lines there is. Sorry, in file, typo. So we read all the files. This is all the lines, right? And here, before I'm doing this, I am going to print all, right? So let's print and see what it is. So this is all of them as we speak. What do you see? Yeah, so \n, it doesn't belong there. Where is that came from? So if you recall, when we write it here, so when we're creating the file, in order to write each name in separate lines, we use the \n command. Guess what? There is some commands that the program understands when they are in the programs, right? So \n to the right means go to the next line. But when you store this, it actually stores it as a form of strings. You can see that right there. And guess what? When you're reading it here, each line, you're reading the \n. However, when you're reading the line here, \n makes sense to the rest of the program. So when you do that, when you're reading it and you're printing it, by print understand \n. So you're gonna go print itself, goes to the next line, and also you have that \n at the back end of each name. So that also add another line to it. And that's our problem. This is one of the common mistakes. So what should I do? Okay, so I find the problem. This \n actually shows up here. How can I fix that? What's the course of action? We're gonna get rid of \n, right? We don't want the \n when you're taking it out. So here, every time I read the line, it's called a stripping. So I'm gonna strip out the \n from that string. So what that even means? So we're gonna go line 1. We're gonna go in files .r no, sorry, we're gonna go line 1 equals to r strip \n. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna read the first line, and I'm gonna strip out the \n from that string. So r strip does that. As you can see, there's a lot of variables. I'm just doing it for you guys to understand, but what you can do, here we go. So if you strip that out, so we're going to do that for line 2, and you're going to do that for line 3. Right? So we're going to do that, and if you run it now, the spaces are gone. So we stripped it out. You can do that if you have anything extra while you transfer a lot, right? You get the string, send it to the file, you get it back. Some of the commands might save, some of the things might happen. By the way, since this is a elementary programming style, we just have this line 1 again equals to line 1. We can get rid of that, and right away just cut this here, just for your FYI. So we're just doing this. It's too much line 1. So we get the line 1, then we go to the basically a module or a function that strips that out and save it back again to line 1. So we can do it right away in one shot. Get used to the idea of doing things in one shot, because you're saving lots of memory as there is. So here we go. So I'm gonna take that out. So sometimes you guys see the complicated programs and you're gonna panic. So what is this? There's one function into another, and that you go nuts when you see that for the first time. It's not that complicated if you take a look, right? So let's run this, and you see generate the same output there. So let's take a break, come back 3:30, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about appending and breaking things down. And if you're interested, also I can teach you how to manipulate the Excel file with Python, which is really interesting. But that won't be part of the agenda here, but just since you guys are so keen, All right, take a break. 3:30, we come back. All right, so let's circle back to this. What we did, we just learned what's going on here. We removed those backslash n's, and now let's go create a file. So let's create a dummy. So I'm gonna have a dummy file, and so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna learn a couple of more things about files when you read and write it, and from there, so let's create that dummy, call it dummy, and we're gonna open a file called dummy.txt, right? We have this file and we're just gonna write it, so we learn how to do that. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna write something in it. So I'm gonna go dummy dot read. No, sorry, we're gonna write, and what I'm gonna write is what? So I'm gonna write something in it. Let's say Hassam Akbari teaching us Python. Something like this, right? So I write the message, I'm opening a file, call it dummy, and write the message into it, and what I do, the procedure is just closing it, right? So we close the dummy when we are done. So this is what it is. So every time I call this module, it creates this file for me with this context in it. Let's try it. Let's just create dummy, and let's run it. And as you can see, you see the dummy.txt here. So we open it, see the message is in it. Maybe I should, Hassam Akbari is teaching us Python. So let's just run that again. Check the message. Here we go. So this is my file dummy. And now when I create it once, I'm not gonna create it again. I'm just gonna uncall this module or comment it. And what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna start reading it. So let's have a dummy equals to open. So what we're gonna open is dummy.txt, and this time we're gonna read it, right? So now I have the file. Let's have a string. We learned you can read lines, you can read the whole thing, but what if I want to read specific words? I want the first 12 or something. So let's have a string, and I said, okay, now I can tell them, okay, go read. And you can hear it says, okay, go read, let's say 12, first 12. So now if you print str, what would give you is just my name. Now this is like from the file, right? So here I'm reading the philosophers, so let me get rid of that. So what is reading now is just my name, because my name has 12 characters in it. So now, so let's do this. Let's say reading strings str is that, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run this again. So what happened? I read the dummy once for the first 12 character, and then I'm gonna do that again. So what's gonna happen? Is that gonna show you to Hassam Akbari or something else? Let's run it and see. So it goes and continue from the last time you left the position or the pointer. So you start from 0 to 12, and then you stop there, and next time you call the next 12, we're going to start from that point and continue. So the thing is, this is never resets. Start from the 0 and just go up. So if you do that again, so the best way to know, okay, so I'm manipulating this file and I don't know where is the location of that position, right? Or that pointer, where is it? So you should be able to find it every time. Because here is at 0 and here is at 12, and next time I'm using it, I don't know what to put there, right? So the best way to read it is there's a function, let's call it this. So I need to know the position. So let's go here and say, okay, what's the position of that pointer? Just point. And we're just gonna go dummy, and there is a function called a tell. So this tell us where is the pointer location. So here it should be 0, right? Because we just opened the file and let's see if it is or not. So I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna print the position. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's 1, I don't know. Never trust what you know, you always test it, it's easier that way. Here we go. So the location initially is 0, means at the beginning of the file. So when I read the first 12 and then I print it, here the location would be 12. So here is 12. So 0 becomes 12 because you read 12. So next time you read next 12, the position become 24, right? And next time, I don't think there's more than that. So if you repeat this again, excuse me. Now is 34. Okay, so how do I reset this? Maybe you want to put that pointer to the specific location. I don't want to start from 0, right? So you can simply reset that doing this. So you can go reset the position of the pointer. And let's go dummy. So in order to set that pointer to a specific location, reading it, right? So we said, okay, go read the first 12. But let's say I want to set that pointer to location 24 and read it from there. Or you just want to reset it back to whenever it is. There's a function called that seek, which is you can set to whenever you want the position. So this function or module, the function relocate that pointer or location indicator, whatever you want to call it, to the position you want. Okay, so if you put it at the 0, it goes from the beginning. You want it on the 10, it goes on the 10. That means what? If I copy this again, instead of 34, then we come back to the 12 because we reset it once, right? So let's just do that. And so if you run it again, see, back to the beginning. Now, if you don't want the 0, you can put 3, and guess what? You start from 3 and you add 12 to it, read the first 12, and that's your pointer would be on 15 now. So if you do that, instead of 0, you see 15. And you see the HES is gone because 0, 1, 2 is not part of it anymore. You start from 3, which is A, M, and so on. So you can manipulate that pointer the way you want it, or just set the location as you please. All right, so this is important to know. Also, okay, so when I'm done with all that funny games, what I forgot to do is you're gonna close the dummy. We're done reading it. So always do that. When you open, close. When you read, close. Right? Okay, so let's create another file. So this is for learning that you can manipulate the location. Let's go open a file called as full. Open. Let's call it. Okay, so let's go. This is a dummy variable, dummy2 or whatever you want to call it. Let's call it something called a test.txt, and let's write that. So we're creating the file here and let's have a loop to write stuff on it. I'm lazy, so I'm gonna go for I in range of, let's say 10. I want 10 line of text in there, and what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go fo dot right. What I'm gonna go put this is line %d, old fashioned, and go to the next line. And every time for that, we're just gonna go that I plus 1. So we're gonna go. This is line 1, 2, 3, 4. I just wanna have 10 line of context into my file, and then when I'm done, I'm just gonna do what? What do you do? I open the file. I wrote 10 lines on it. Then you close the file, right? Maybe I should put that on the exam or something. Alright, so this is my test, and you can see you have line 1 to 10. So I create a file called test and has 10 lines in it. Alright, so I did that. And now you can now open the file again, and this time I'm gonna do the same thing, but this is in the reading mode. Sorry, there's an extra dot there. Here we go. Sometimes this keyboard drives me nuts. Alright, you can simply do this. You can check all the time if you're not sure. Because if you open the file, you write it, you read it, you don't know. Sometimes you want to take action, you want to make sure you got the right mode. So you always, as we test, you can always say, okay, if the flow.mode, which was what? Like it tells you read or write or whatever it is. So you can read the mode is equals to R, which is the read, then go actually read it. Because sometimes you want to read the file, but the file has to be in the reading mode. So you want to make sure. This is one way of checking it also. So we're going to go fo dot, what are we doing? Read. So what it is, you can read the file also. That's another way of doing it. And let's save all the things there is. So you can always save all the things there is into a let's call contents. So if you just want to read the file, what's in it, you can do this. Instead of going line by line or just, then you can simply print contents. Let's see what we can print there. There we go. So exactly all the lines, you can see it there. So sometimes you just want to read it. See what it is, you can read it with this. Simple. You can read lines, all the lines, and save it in an array. You can read each lines. You can do many things you want. This function, try it. So now okay, so now I have the file. There's 10 lines in it. And I want to add more stuff to it. So if you do this, if let's say you open the file, let's call test again, and let's say I want to add 3 more lines to this. If you put this in right, the position will be on at the beginning. So it means if I have a loop, and we're just gonna go for dot right, and what we're gonna do is let's say this is append line number, let's go, I do the same format because of obvious reasons. We're gonna do %d. All right, %d %i plus 1. Let's just put the parentheses to be safe. I don't want to print 1 and all right. So now I'm adding 3. If you open this in the writing mode, what is going to happen is, let's see, close it afterwards. If you run that, oh, what happens is if you take a look, you had that first 10 line and then I close it and I read it. So if you take a look at that here, wait, let me just go back to this. So if you run this, initially I had 10 lines. I read them. I print them here. Then on the same file, I write that again, and that's overwritten all the thing I had, all the 10 lines. Because I start from the top at the beginning and write 3 lines. But my objective was to add that 3 line at the end of the initial 10 line I had. So what you're supposed to do is instead of writing it, you should append it. Means what? So now this time I open it, I'm not saying writing it, I said appending it. Means it opens it, it writes, but the pointer or location is all the way at the end. So when you do this, you'll see that you actually add that 3 line at the end of whatever you had before. So this is appending. Appending means adding, addition, right? So fancy word for addition. Because we are fancy people, we're using fancy. Anyways, file manipulation. There's a couple of things you can do. So let's comment all that. A couple of things you can do, and there is a library or the package called an OS. That is operating systems, as you know. There's a couple of function and module there that you can use when you're manipulating files. For example, you can go OS equals to rename. So you can do this. You can rename your test.txt. So all the things you do on your operating system, right click, rename it, or delete it, or I don't know, copy it, all those things, you can actually write it in the code format using the OS library as is imported. So let's say we want to change the text to, let's go info2. You can do that. Let's try it. So here we go. That's info2 now. So things are in it. Alright, so that's one of the things it is. I'm not going to run this anymore because it looks for the test2 and it can't really find. Let me run it and probably give you an error. Oh, I didn't. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, there we go. You know why? Because it's asking, oh, where is test.txt now? Because we rename it once, it's not existed, so it's looking for it, you can't really find it. So we can do info2 now to no, we already have info2, info3, that's it. Anyway, so that's one thing. What else we can find there? You can remove Let's say you can go os.remove, set delete, and let's go delete the dummy. And the dummy will be deleted. So those are the things you do with right click, left click. You always can use that. It's a good library to know. Anything operating system related can be actually manipulated through your code or through your Python. These are interesting.